Hi, welcome to the Elle Rush Show, where I deliver content intended to inspire, educate, and motivate. Engage with me online at ellerush.com and on social media. Enjoy the show. Today, my guest is Cassandra Worthy. She invigorates, inspires, and motivates others to grow through their change challenges. She's the world's leading expert on change enthusiasm, lighting the world on fire with her refreshingly unique take on not just managing, but growing through change. And through her consulting firm, Change Enthusiasm Global, she has shared this revolutionary approach for not only embracing change, but using it to propel you to heights you never imagined. She is trusted by clients around the globe, including MassMutual, Johnson & Johnson, Snapchat, CVS, and so much more. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Cassandra.
Thank you so much for having me, Elle. This is great.
I love the name of your book, Change Enthusiasm. What a wonderful term, how to harness the power of emotion for leadership and success. But before we get into that, let's talk about what brought you there, how you became a leader in industry in general. Let's talk about your humble beginnings. Where'd you start from, and how did you get into the career that launched this?
Sure, rock and roll. So I was born in Metro Atlanta. I've always been a very, very curious soul. Ever since I was little, asking many, many questions, probably annoying my parents to no end. But I've always just been intrigued and curious about what I call the mysteries of life. So I always tell people that science and math chose me, because as soon as I discovered them, it's like I had these tools to answer so many mysteries that I had in life. And so I had a natural affinity for science and math, which led me on the path of engineering. Initially, it was pediatric neurosurgery. That was my early career aspirations. Yeah, when I was in the fourth grade, and I saw Dr. Ben Carson get an award for being the first to separate Siamese twins from the brain, and I was like, "Yo, he is sharp. He is articulate. He's getting these accolades for a scientific feat. He makes a lot of money, so that's what I'm about to do." So I pursued that hard fast up until my sophomore year of school at Georgia Tech. And I was like, you know what, man, I got to finish out bachelor's. I got to get my medical degree. I got to do 9 to 11 years of residency before I'm a full-fledged neurosurgeon. And I was like, why do I really want to do that? And so when I, thought back to myself in the fourth grade and why I chose that, I could see a lot of different paths that could get me there as opposed to being a neurosurgeon, which ultimately was about helping people and also making a comfortable living and not really having to want for anything. And so I decided to switch gears, and I moved from pre-med biology to chemical engineering, honestly, because the majority of my credits transferred into that major, and I saw that I could make a good living simply with a bachelor's degree. And so that's what I did. I switched to chemie and really didn't look back. Had a really great college experience, had some internships for a lot of different companies, but one in particular, Procter & Gamble, really resonated with me. And so I interned with them twice and then ended up working with them full time after graduation. I spent about 12 years working at Procter & Gamble, and then an additional 3 or 4 years with Duracell in the Berkshire Hathaway portfolio, all leveraging my degree in chemie. So I got to do a lot of product innovation and eventually lead a lot of organizations delivering innovation all around the world, which was a dream. But it was also a career that was just, I dealt with a lot of change, man, a lot of shift. I went through a lot of acquisitions and I felt the pain and those emotions that bubble up when we're going through those really difficult changes in our lives, that kind of change. It feels like it slaps you in the face and knocks you on the ground and you didn't ask for it.
Even if it's positive. And so, well, first of all, I want to ask you, so it's very interesting. You are, when we're listening to you, it's like you embody like creativity, communication, right? Which are sometimes characteristics we don't associate with the heavily science-minded, right? You know what I mean?
Totally.
Right. And you really have both. So it's interesting to see someone so like focused on like, this is a good career. I'm good at science and math and that kind of thing. And then notice what you noticed on this emotional sort of creative characteristic, like fundamental human level over here. What was it that first tipped you off to go, oh, I'm having like strong emotions during change. I mean, we all do. I even went through a really great change recently and it's still emotional. It's
It
weird
is.
because even, you spend a decade with someone or a company, and even if it's all good and you're moving on, it feels bad. It feels like, no, wait, I don't want change. I don't like change, Cassandra.
Stay away, change. No.
Right. So when did you first like get tipped to go, ooh, hold on?
It was probably my first really big acquisition. It was with Procter, and I transitioned into a business that they had just acquired. It's a big multi-billion-dollar acquisition, and I moved geographically for it. And when I got into that new business, it was like I had quit P&G and was working for a completely different company. And it was a very us versus them type of culture early on in the integration of the acquisition. Mm-hmm. And it was just every day I was so frustrated. Every day I was angry. It was like everything I was doing to move the business forward was met with such resistance. And every day I felt like quitting. Every day I felt like quitting. And then as a last ditch effort, I actually reached out to a mentor of mine, and she was a director. And, I was basically just venting to her, telling her how horrible my work experience was. And she was like, Cassandra, I'm going to offer you some advice. You can either get bitter or you can get better. And that's your choice.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll tell you, as I say that now, I'm like, yes, sage wisdom. Because, that's what I tell my audience.
Yes.
But in that moment, I was like, what?
This it hurt a little bit.
My
yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
I don't have any power here. You're not listening to me. I need you to fire these 3 people. And you're not listening to me. But letting those words marinate and think about me having choice, it's like, yo, I do have choice on how I show up, how I experience my work. That is my choice. And so I began letting these emotions that I was feeling, like fear, like frustration, like anger, I let them be signals as guides. And I began embracing them as welcoming into these opportunities to grow. Like, who has the opportunity to be a part of a multi-billion-dollar acquisition like that?
Right. Like, what a first-class problem you're crying about. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I didn't realize it at the time. It took me some months. But eventually I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to learn, to grow. And I did just that. And after that, working in that business, I got myself top rated. And then I had another broadening assignment that I wouldn't have landed if I hadn't have been in that business. And so, this is I really started to cultivate what I teach now, which I've coined change enthusiasm, which is this growth mindset. And I've broken it down into 3 steps. I have a very pragmatic, engineering type mind.
Yes, I noticed that in your book too, very much.
Yes.
Breaking it down.
Yeah, but it's all about acknowledging these, what I call signal emotions, right? There are these gifts, the fear, the frustration, anxiety, grief, and anger. Those are the 5 that in my experience, as well as experience with now clients all over the world, that are the most common when we're going through really big change. And these are gifts. They are invitations that are signaling us into our opportunity to grow. So the second step of putting change enthusiasm into practice is about stepping into that opportunity, understanding what are my options, knowing that I'm about to grow and I'm about to learn. How can I do that? How can I milk this for all that it's worth? And then the final step is the choice, right? For me, it's the magical point where you can begin transforming that emotional energy into what I call fuel for your growth.
Let's dial it back for 1 minute. And, you mentioned in your book, when change shows up, the first response is emotion, and then emotion travels faster than thought. Can you kind of just wrap our heads around that concept a little bit so we can understand why we're feeling that way when that comes up?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this relates all the way back to the birth of our species, right? If you think about, early ancestry, when, you're in the bush and a beast or something comes about, the first thing that they felt was fear, right? And it goes through the amygdala, which travels a lot faster than cognitive thought. And so the first thing you get is this feeling. And back then, that feeling was an alert. And really, they were in an opportunity. You can either get eaten or you can find a way to escape. Right.
Well, and now you're speaking my language with paleo, primal, ancestral health. But what you point out is very important, because the change in our lives is still bound a little bit by our primal nature to see that as a threat or a worry. I mean, think about it. Like, even if we came across a water well that was tainted back in our hunter-gatherer ancestor days, that would be a moment of like, now we got to change course, find something else. Oh, Joe died drinking that. We're not eating those berries. Like, and so we still have that. We still have this primal sense. And this is a part of what you're proposing here is really adapting as modern human beings essentially to this, using it, but working with it, because otherwise we're too in the fight or flight, our cortisol's up, our adrenaline, and now we're going to worst case scenarios.
Yes. And I mean, and that's what happens, right? And I honestly feel that these emotions are gifts and it's an inheritance of our species. And we have to begin thinking about them as tools, as resources that are in infinite supply. And I always think about them as energetic entities, right? Energy that we can either conserve, that we can transfer by venting to somebody else, but eventually that energy finds its way back into us, or we can transform it. How do you transform anxiety into anticipation? You can do that through choice. You can do that through your conscious choice, and you can transform that energy into fuel. And it's a magical thing, man. It's a magical thing.
Okay, so I have, I have had many friends who've gone through acquisition situations. It is very precarious, right? Especially when one company is buying another, and then you're not sure what your position is going to be, even though they're like, yeah, we're going to need you, but you're still kind of going, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right, totally.
It is such uncertainty. It's wonderful that you offer your services and you can help companies through this. And then, like you said, maybe an us versus them, or people looking side eyed at each other, like, are you going to try to take my shit? Or, this kind of thing. So it is a tough thing to navigate. What would you say to people who are in that sort of fearful position of either a transition, or maybe their company's going to be sold and now they're like, oh no, I'm going to have to look for a job in a few months, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Where can they start?
So first, I would say that if you're feeling those, what I call signal emotions of change, know that it's okay, and know that it's okay to acknowledge that and be in that moment. And I always talk about granting yourself grace. Grant yourself grace to sit with those emotions, to be with them and allow them to exist. Because the worst thing to do is to conserve them or ignore them and just act like everything's fine. I'm going to be okay. Everything's fine. And let that stuff bubble over because it begins to lead to maybe emotional outbursts. So first, it's important to acknowledge the existence of them. And once you acknowledge that they're there, then it's like, yo, I'm being invited into an opportunity. I'm about to grow. I'm about to evolve. Whether that means remaining with this company or growing into a different company, right? And maybe you're being invited into a different organization, a different function, or even a different company that's going to help you accelerate your career. So whenever, you're going through those big transitions like that, I always like to get in tune with where is it that I want my career to go, and how can I leverage what's happening right now to take me there? And I'll give you an example. My second big acquisition that I was a part of, it was just like what you mentioned. When that company acquired my particular business, senior leadership just started cutting staff. They were cutting headcount left and right, reducing cost, right, as things go. And so it was a really uncertain time. I would wake up not knowing if I was going to have a job, right, the next day, if I was going to be told we're going to let you go. And at one point, I was in a budget review with my manager, and he was like, Cassandra, I like you and I want to keep you, but I just don't see a lot of value in having you in my organization in a couple of years.
So, you know what? Thanks for your fucking brutal honesty, dude. Okay. All right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I will tell you my immediate response, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, my mouth went dry, and I kind of saw red. Right. And really acute signal emotions like, how dare you? How dare you not see the value that I bring? You don't even know me. We've only been working together for 2 months, all these thoughts. But then I was like, wait a second. These signal emotions are blasting. It means I am in an opportunity. Somehow I'm about to grow, and it's up to me to choose how I do that. And so what I ended up doing was I created a role for myself in a different organization. So not in his org, but still in that company, leveraging my network. And honestly, it was a role that I was better suited for, that served the business better, and that was well poised for advancement. And
okay, how'd you do that though? Did you go pitch it? Did you go pitch it to someone?
I had to, yes, and constantly every day working change enthusiasm. In the face of every signal emotion, knowing I'm in an opportunity, what will I choose today? What will I choose today to move this forward? I knew where I was passionate. I knew where I could see myself adding value to that business. And I saw where there was big opportunity for me to contribute. And so I sculpted what the organization could be. I leaned on mentors. I leaned on people that were already sponsoring me, and basically was able to influence senior leadership to create this organization that I was able to lead.
Okay, I just need to stop there and say that is, I wrote a book called Confident as Fuck. That is just the epitome of it. And I want no, because I really want people to hear that. You cannot, you were like, hold on a minute. I see where I'm evaluating, I see where I would, and instead of waiting for someone to come offer it or to come and figure that out about you, you went and said, you know what, here, I got an idea. What a proactive step up, speak up moment. You cannot navigate through business and life unless you have this level of confidence and self-esteem, which of course can be cultivated. But I want to congratulate you on that. And also just what a great example of confidence and self-esteem.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I love the title of that book. Confident as fuck. It's good. It's really good.
Okay. So then, sorry, continue on. I just wanted to highlight.
Yeah, no. I mean, I would say not only is the lesson there to know your own worth and your value and how you can add that value, but also really being in tune with what I call as your authentic self. And I know that authenticity is a term that's being thrown around a lot in recent years. So I like to define it because it's very important for me. For me, authenticity is about being honest and true to you, to the core of who you are. Yes. And truly, you can't really reach authentic until you know you, right? And so a big part of change enthusiasm is really getting to know you and how these emotions manifest through you. And this whole knowledge of who you are and remaining honest and true to that self is also a big part of stepping into that confidence, right? And when you're in these moments of transformation and transition, knowing, okay, what do I want for my career? Where do I see my true value? How do I want to contribute? And allowing that to guide you. And so, knowing your passions, knowing where you want to go, your curiosities, I firmly believe that passion really, sprouts from curiosities, and allowing that to guide you when you're in these big moments of transition and transformation, and you guide it. Let yourself be the guide of your own growth and your own evolution, making those choices.
Well, it's wonderful that you brought up authenticity. It is something that is absolutely related to confidence because the reason we look up to and trust confident people is because of their authenticity. It's because they say what they mean what they say, they don't BS people. Those are qualities that are so admired versus people-pleasing qualities, which is really lying. It's the most inauthentic way to be. Also, I just want to touch on this idea. We're talking about companies and feeling, where your moments of like, oh no, they're being bought, or they're now moving to a different state, and there's change here. I just want to say it's so interesting because employees at companies have such a false sense of security. This is at will, man. You can get fired at any time. So it's so interesting, isn't it, Cassandra, that it comes up and then all of a sudden we're feared. So for example, this happened recently in Hollywood where, I live in LA. And so Disney told like 16,000 of their employees, they're like, oh, by the way, we're moving to Florida. If you don't come with us, then, you don't have a job with us anymore. And everybody was up in arms, right? I've worked for this company. I've been building my pension for 15 years. And you're like, they owed you shit. They didn't owe you anything from the beginning. Right. It was your false sense of loyalty to this company. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're making a financial decision over here. Of course they are. And now there's people, I have friends that are working there going, oh my God, now I've got to move to Florida or find another job that may not have the benefits or this, grandfathered pension I had. But let's just, because it's like if people really knew the truth, they'd be frightened all the time every day of losing their job, but they're not until something comes up until
something happens.
So anyway, I wanted to throw that topic out. You know what I mean? It's a strange conundrum.
Yeah, of course. And I think the important part of this, and this is what I like to share with my clients, when that big thing happens and it becomes kind of this oh shit moment, and you feel like you're laying on the ground, having been knocked down and knocked out, and all you just get consumed by this fear and this anxiety. Woe is me. This is horrible. Can't believe like this is happening to me. One of the things that I love to do with my clients is what I call a seeds of trust exercise. And it's where I invite participants to think back to a time, a big change, a big transition, where they felt the same level of signal emotion, where they were like, the tunnel is completely blacked out. I'm not going to be able to find a foot forward. And then think of something good that happened as a result of that change. Whether that be a new connection, whether that be, a higher paying job, met someone, a new mentor, something. And so the room gets filled with these Post-it notes, with these seeds of trust. And then I say, let's allow these seeds to grow in us right now and trust that if those good things happen and we're feeling the same way today, something good is in store for us. And it really is a matter of perspective and thinking about how is this an opportunity and how is this inviting me to become better, to learn, to grow. Maybe having to, not move to Florida and remain in LA, you're going to get your eyes open to something that you would never even thought of,
Sure.
that you have never even thought about going into. And perhaps it's a place where you can thrive even better and someplace that you love even more. And so I firmly believe, and this is a result of practicing this mindset over the past decade and a half, that these really big disruptions, these changes that can feel devastating, that can, knock our breath out of our lungs, they never happen to us. They're happening for us. They're happening to serve us, to serve our evolution, to build our resiliency muscle, to invite us to grow, to learn, to evolve, to become better. And it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I think the pandemic shook up everybody.
Oh my gosh, yes.
In positive ways, right?
Yes.
People, the employers realizing we don't need to rent these office spaces. They're doing fine at home. Jesus, let's just call this off. And then people going, hold on a minute, life is short, right? Seeing loss of life and going, what's my purpose? So many things triggered in a positive way. You mentioned, back to ancestral times. So victim mindset, back in the ancestral days, a victim mindset would have been a sure recipe for death. You can't sit there and wallow around and cry. We got to move on. That water well's tainted. We've got to move on now that there's no more animals here. To wallow, it's a modern luxury to wallow in self-pity. And so what's not fun about these moments is the I got to light a fire under my ass now. But what I love about your perspective, very similar to certain spiritual teachers, of when something seemingly negative happens, it's like, thank you.
Yes.
This is going to be good. And you know what? I can say that. And I wrote about it in my book, but the two seemingly worst things in my life that happened to me were the best things, the best gifts I could have ever given. Hindsight.
Yeah.
And sometimes gifts come wrapped in shit. So this is just perfect to take a situation that's troubling and going, hold on a minute. I'm going to come out of this. I'm going to prevail, having that will.
Yeah. And let me just couch this with, because we're making it sound like it's easy. And that I just want to make sure that that's not, how it's coming across, because it's not. This is not easy. And of course, change enthusiasm is not about ignoring those really difficult emotions and pretending that they don't exist. It's not about blind positivity, blind optimism. I will tell you that over the past 18 months, I've had to practice this mindset more than ever. Mm-hmm. When March of 2020 hit with the pandemic, I'm a speaker and consultant. I make a living traveling the world, sharing my message with, thousands of people. And so I woke up to cancellations, reschedules, and revenue dwindling. And it was a really dark time for me. I tell people that the 2 weeks of March, the best I could do was get out of bed, look at my email, see how far my revenue had dwindled, get on the couch, binge Netflix, and eat potato chips. That's all I got. That's all I could do. But in those moments, I said, you know what? I am granting myself the grace to do this, because this is where I'm at right now. I am sitting in these signal emotions. I know that they're here, and I'm letting myself feel them and be in this moment and granting myself grace. But I am trusting that I am being invited into this moment of opportunity. And it's up to me to choose how I maximize it. And that's what slowly kept me getting off the couch, right? Making little choices. Okay, what's happening in the industry now? It's a pivot to virtual. What does that mean?
Oh no, I need to get a Zoom account. Yeah.
Exactly. What kind of camera should I use? How do I transform my home office into a studio? Who's already doing it? Who can I connect with? So it's about making these little deliberate choices that day by day started to inspire a different feeling, started to transform some of that signal emotion into these growth sustaining emotions like hope, like anticipation, like excitement. And that's what it's all about. I think one of the key ingredients when we're going through a lot of change and shuffle, especially when practicing this mindset, is patience. We always want things to happen quick. And
we want answers when there's change disruption. We want a fucking answer. We're like, what's going to happen? We want future predictions immediately.
Yes, make the pain stop. Make it go away. But, as many things go, especially in change, it takes time. It takes time. And in addition to that trust and that belief that I'm on the path, I'm walking in this opportunity, I'm making the conscious choices to grow, to learn on a daily basis. And I trust that it will continue to get better and better, just a little bit every day, just a little bit. Yeah.
What about this thought? So change comes up, emotions are coming up. Also a good time to see if there's some trauma work to be done there. I was interviewing Terry Cole, well-known psychiatrist and author. She talked about how back in the day she worked in a facility or a psychiatric facility, and there was a doctor she didn't like, and she just avoided him, and she thought she hated. She just had bad vibes about him and was like avoiding him and all this kind of stuff, and just really couldn't like step into her role very well. And she realized that it was just too familiar to her father. She was almost projecting onto this guy, right? Because he just seemed like this vibe of her father. And she realized, oh my God, I'm doing this transferring thing. And that really helped her to go, oh my God, this guy's not my dad. He's just exuding qualities that are like that. So what around this topic can you shed light on in terms of like when change comes up? Have you noticed it either in yourself or other people you've worked with where they've discovered something that's, like, ooh, I still have something to heal over here?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think that a lot of the opportunity is about learning you. Oftentimes when we're in this really tough situations, it's a great time to check in with you. It's a great time to get to know you. And a lot of times that opportunity is, getting deep within and learning about these emotions that are coming up and the root cause of those emotions. Oftentimes it is the big changes happening at work, but sometimes it's associated with other things going on within us. And so I always say, when you're in that second step, exploring the opportunity, don't hesitate or shy away from the opportunity of learning more about you. This is a great time to go within, self-reflection. And again, that talk about guiding your evolution, guiding how you want to become better, getting to know you and what are you passionate about, as well as what are these kind of sore spots, traumatic spots, injuries that have happened long ago that maybe are now manifesting again that we can now take some time to heal. So yeah, I think all of that is in the opportunity, and it's rich. It's very rich. But again, you're the guide. You're the guide. It is up to you to be bold, to be brave, to step into that opportunity, explore self-reflection, and really guide that discovery, and ultimately that becoming better, that evolution, that making steps forward to learning and growing.
So not to bring things to a downer, but I do think it's important. Well, I think it's important to ask you this question. You are clearly a very confident alpha female. You're also a woman of color. What are some of the struggles or trials and tribulations you've had to go through that you can share with us for those of us who need a little bit of schooling on what people like you have perhaps been through in business and other areas? Or maybe you went scot-free and it's been easy sailing, but I always like to ask that question because I think it's an important journey that we need to shed light on.
I certainly thank you so much for the question. And I certainly have not gone scot-free. But I will tell you, I appreciate the perspective that I have chosen throughout the years. As a female person of color, LGBTQ community member, and engineer, I have very often been the only person that looks like me in a room.
Yeah.
Very often. And I'm sure many of the listeners, this resonates. I have had times where I'm leading huge innovation initiatives, billion-dollar innovation initiatives, and sitting there with my manager and their one-up presenting status. And the one-up, who was an older white gentleman, and my manager, an older white gentleman, when I got done presenting, all of the questions he directed to my manager and wouldn't even look at me. He directed to my manager. And I had to, and to the point where I kind of felt bad because I felt like I was being rude to my manager as he would start to answer, because I would somewhat interrupt and respond to the question. And at one point I was even leaning a little bit towards my manager to catch the eye of the senior leader. And eventually, the more that I was inserting myself, providing the responses, he and I were getting into dialogue, and eventually his gaze would turn to me and we were having that dialogue.
Right. But you had to direct that. You had to direct that energy. And again, that goes to confidence and having the wherewithal in that moment to go, hold on a minute, something's not right here. Yeah. I need to interject.
Yeah, absolutely. And I that moment of the opportunity of not being seen, even though I'm the one leading the innovation, I'm the one leading the organization and delivering the results. He felt that the respect should be shown to the other white man in the room. And maybe that wasn't his conscious Bias, but it certainly has some unconscious bias, within it. So I've certainly experienced that. But this is what I say in the perspective that I have carried for many years that has helped me. I actually enjoy being the only person in the room that looks like me, because whether I like it or you like it or not, the spotlight is then on me. Right? People,
hey, way to look at the opportunity there. Love it.
There it is. That's the opportunity. So I step into that light, and I am one that believes I am supposed to be in every room that I step into. If I am in a role, if I'm in a position, if I'm in a boardroom, I'm meant to be there. And it's to share my perspective, my thought leadership, my personality, my energy, my style in that room in order to move the business forward, and maybe even help other leaders to become better and inspire other leaders to become better as well. So I love stepping into that light, knowing that, okay, they're already looking at me. So, hey, I'm about to show up and show out. I'm about to share my thoughts, where I think the business should go, ideas, all of that, because I kind of already have a spotlight because of who I am stepping into this room with a lot of other white men.
Yeah. And it's even as a white woman, it's happened in Hollywood to me as a writer. Like I'll have a male writing partner, and let's say maybe I spearheaded the whole thing. I might even be the head writer on it or whatever, or maybe we're even somewhat equal. And then we go into a meeting and everybody defers to him. And I had to have a conversation with one of my writing partners about this before we went into meeting. I said, listen, they're going to be constantly deferring to you, even though it was a woman and a man we were meeting with. I just knew it would happen, even with a woman. Yeah. It just does. Yeah. And I said, they're going to keep deferring to you, and you need to make sure you're lobbing them over to me. That's your job today. And we had to have that. And he just kind of didn't get it until then after the meeting. I'm like, did you not see? Did you not see how this works out? It's so frustrating because you're like, actually, because then they kind of look at you like, oh, you're just the administrative person that typed this up versus and the guy's the idea guy. It's so classic. So after that, I was like, oh my God, I have to prep these meetings to my writing partner now because they need to be aware of this.
And thank you for doing that. I mean, it sucks that that's something that has to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, these systems that live within us and these unconscious biases, and it's like you get the most well-intentioned people, but haven't done the work and the self-reflection to recognize the biases that live in them, these systems that live within them. And I think having that opportunity for that gentleman to be coached by you, perhaps his eyes and his heart got open to, that bias that's very real. And that oftentimes, when you're a person who is not of color, a person who is, a white man, cis hetero man, you can kind of miss that because it's kind of become like the norm. So, yeah.
Tell us about some of the success stories you've had with companies, some of the conflicts and things you were able to help resolve or transitions you were helped to make smoother. Can you give us a few examples of how your work has impacted people?
Sure. So I've done quite a bit of work with a large pharmaceutical company over the past 12 months or so. They're going through tremendous transition, notably in their finance organization. They're going through a major transformation. And I was so grateful to work with them, not only in a keynote capacity, but also doing some leadership workshops and now actually doing some executive coaching with their executive team. And to be able to open leadership's eyes to the importance and the power of emotional energy and allowing individuals to emote, recognizing and acknowledging that emotional energy across the organization, and then providing them the tools and the language to talk about it, allowing the energy to flow and then transform that has just been incredible. And I've seen, executive leaders show up talking about empathy, talking about how I want our weekly communications to be rebranded to "You are not alone." Mm-hmm. I want employees to know that we are all in this together, to recognize that if they're feeling any of these signal emotions, it's okay. I've seen confident vulnerability come out of C-suite executives where they share their own signal emotions, then guided by that trust and the vision and the mission and the direction that they're going in. But sharing that vulnerability, creating these magical connections with their employees and like, yo, I'm not the only one feeling this way. And this guy gets me. He knows that I'm feeling this and it's okay. And so to feel that genuine connection and see that happening at such high levels in corporate America is dope. It's it's dope for me. And I mean, that's the fuel for me to keep doing my work day after day.
How do you keep your mindset intact? Do you have a daily practice that you do, or just when things come up, you're adjusting it in that moment? Or do you have like, you spend time in the morning doing your thing? What's your day like in terms of jazzing yourself up mindset wise?
Sure. I would say my most common practice is journaling. Journaling is something that has been a big tool for me for the past several years, really. It's a spiritual practice for me. And the ability to not only ideate about, where I want to take the business, but also to emote and to share, my thoughts and put them in black and white. And it's a powerful thing when you can do that, because you can separate, especially when you might be in that downward spiral, you can separate those thoughts from yourself. You know what I mean? It's create that separation so they can see I am not my thoughts. And it's a very powerful thing to do. So yeah, I journal every day, and I don't leave it to just the morning. Anytime the inspiration strikes, I'll grab my journal. I'm always with it for those who know me well. I also love latte. So we have a little ritual, my fiance and I, where we have coffee dates in the mornings, go get our lattes, a quick bite, have a little bit of a respite together before the day really jump kicks in. So yeah, I love a nice latte in the morning. And I love my spiritual journaling practice. It's important for me.
That's amazing. Also, just you have an amazing last name, Worthy. How much better of a name can you get for self-esteem? I had a friend named Worth.
I can't take ownership for that. It's my real name, my father's side of the family. And I'm grateful, and I can't tell you how many people ask me after a keynote, I have to ask you, is that your real last name? I'm like, yes, that's really, I am worthy. I'm like, gosh, yeah, you really are.
I love it.
It's cool.
What else can you touch on that maybe I haven't brought up, or something that you'd like to impart on our audience before we wind it down here on, how to look at this, or some other tips and tricks that we might want to think about?
Yeah, I will say, I hope that everyone is inspired by the thought of the emotions of change being very real and undeniable. And if you're feeling them, that it's okay. And actually that this is a natural inheritance. It is a resource and a tool to you. And through the power of choice, you can step into the opportunity they're inviting you into. So I certainly hope you all will pick up a copy of the book. Go to changeenthusiasmbook.com. The reason that I wrote this is because I wanted it to be a handbook, a guide for those who want to practice change enthusiasm every day. It is rich with a lot of exercises on how to put the signal, the opportunity, and the choice, those 3 steps into practice. There's a lot of client kind of case studies. I also had the privilege of interviewing 3 incredible, resilient people across a few different industries and sharing their resilience and putting change enthusiasm into practice. So you're going to see it exemplified, and you're going to have exercises to put it into practice for yourself. I firmly believe this as a mindset that has to be practiced. Resiliency is a muscle. You strengthen that muscle through going through change and practicing this mindset. So my hope is that you'll get the book, you'll put the exercises into practice, and that you begin retraining your brain, retraining how those synapses fire, so that when you experience change and those signal emotions start bubbling up, oof, this doesn't feel great, but it means I'm about to grow. I'm about to learn something, and it's up to me to choose how I do that. So that's really my wish and hope, is that you pick up the book and start putting this stuff into practice.
Perfect. And we will put everything to connect with you in the show notes. But aside from changeenthusiasmbook.com, give us your website to directly connect with you.
Sure. CassandraWorthy.com, or follow me on social. I'm most active on LinkedIn, but I'm also on Instagram, Cassandra Worthy Speaker, as well as Facebook. We are Change Enthusiasts. We have a vibrant community there, over 12,000 folks. So yeah, please join the tribe, join the movement, and let's rock and roll with some change enthusiasm.
I love it. Cassandra, such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, listeners. Over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture. And it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/LRUS for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.